Welcome back to the Flex Diet Podcast, where we focus on all things to increase muscle mass, aka for the geeks, hypertrophy, better body composition, and performance, all without destroying your health and using a flexible approach. I'm your host, Dr. Mike T. Nelson, and today I've got an insider conversation with my buddy Dr. Vince, all about the world of sports supplementation. Dr. Vince was the main Ph.D. guy behind the scenes at Onnit for many years, and he is off doing his own thing right now. This podcast is brought to you by the Flex Diet certification by myself. I'm the one who put it together, and it will open again in January of 2022. The best way to find out more information is to get on the wait list. Go to flexdiet.com, FLEXDIET.com, and you'll be the first to be notified once it is open. I normally have a bonus that usually is just for newsletter subscribers only. So go to flexdiet.com if you want to learn more about 8 different interventions to maximize recovery, primarily using nutrition. And this is set up as a complete system to use for yourself, or if you're a coach or trainer for your clients. So go to flexdiet.com. As I mentioned today on the podcast, a good buddy, Dr. Vince, we go inside the world of sports supplementation. You can be a fly on the wall as we have a discussion about different types of sports supplements, which ones work, which ones don't. Some of these are kind of the old classic standby. I also pick his brain on some of the newer ones that might be coming out, especially in the realm of stimulants. And we also talk about the formulation process, what goes into it. As a consumer, how do you determine what company should you look at? What products, reading the label, and we jump into the conversation pretty much full on. So you'll notice that it feels like you just got dropped in there as we start talking about a project he's working on with liposomal delivery. So enjoy this conversation with my good buddy, Dr. Vince, and be sure to go to flexdiet.com to get on the wait list, and enjoy the podcast.
Yeah, we're looking at particle sizes. There's a new technology called liposomes, and we're trying to get it on the front end of it instead of the reactionary end of it. And so we're learning day by day on how to look at them, measure them, and all these other ideas.
Very cool.
Yeah,
I know liposomal delivery has been around for a while, but it's one of those things I always thought would be bigger than what it is, but it still seems to be kind of a fringe thing.
yeah. It's I mean, the main problem with it is that basically, like, it's really splashed in the farm sector, because you can you can definitely like put your particles together like a given size, and then everything kind of lines up appropriately. But in nutraceuticals, there's a whole lot of variance in particle size, compound configuration, so on and so forth. And I think that it definitely screws with the ability to do the liposome thing. And it's like each compound needs a different, different formula almost. There's no like if A, then B kind of situation. And then third, it's stupid expensive right now. It drives on average, right? A shot costs somewhere between 9 to 20 cents. Well, normally liposomal technology adds 30 cents on top of it automatically.
Yeah, that makes sense to me, because I've only really seen it with obviously Live on Labs has a bunch of stuff that's liposomal. There's other companies you can find with glutathione that's liposomal, but it seems to be more on compounds that either the pharmacokinetics change with administration, or like glutathione that's debatable if it even makes it past the gut without adding something to it, but as you said, the cost is always significantly higher than two.
And we still got to make money, despite no matter how bad you want to help people.
Yes,
we're gonna make a dollar.
Yeah, and I've always wondered if some of the liposomal, it's like, how would you know if it's done in a legit way or not? Because you've been around the supplement industry for quite a while.
Yeah.
What prevents people from just putting liposomal on the label and being like, yeah, we use liposomes?
Yeah, no, and actually we're really finding that, right? Luckily our the co-manufacturer I work for really, is trying to do it right and ethically. And there's a really good a lot of good research out of Umass imhers by a guy named David McClements. We've actually talked to him multiple times because we're like, what the hell? I don't get it. And he's like, nope, that's it. Like that's the route you're going. So he's done, he has a lot of white papers, and one of the main tell signs is if there's not a phospholipid in it, it's not liposomal. And if you look at a lot of these formulas, right, you go down the eat ingredients list and there's nowhere where there's a phospholipid. You're like, how can this be?
So there's no way they could create the structure then, correct?
Right, exactly. So without the structure, you can't, it's like trying to build a house without brick and mortar.
Right.
You can't, if you don't have the building blocks, you can't make the house. So it's it's a fun game that we're slowly like learning how hard it is to navigate. But when people ask for it, we're like, yeah, we can do it, but it's gonna cost you something. And the encapsulation rate of actually getting the compound within the actual liposome itself can be staggering as well. It can be anywhere from 25% if you're extremely lucky with an extremely small particle, all the way down to like 5%, but it still counts with 5% because it's a thing within a thing, so
yeah, that's the other thing I wonder too, both on the manufacturing side of what's your loss rate of trying to get it in a liposome, and then two, with how loose some of the regulations are in the supplement world, hopefully the parent company would care, but if they don't, they could be like, yeah, it's liposomal delivery, and it's like, we just tried to push a bunch of raws into stuff and it's like 2%,
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, right, so technically with that, that 2% counts. Does it actually make a difference? No, right. Probably not really, for purposes of you and me. I mean, I wouldn't like tout liposomal technology, but if someone wants it, go for it. But luckily you don't lose a lot because, it's, well, at least the way we manufacture it, it's kind of like take the pot, throw everything in there and stir it up. And what gets encapsulated is great. And what doesn't, is still there. So like, for example, with vitamin C, and you have like a 10%, 15% encapsulation rate, you've got your encapsulated vitamin C, and then you've got your 90% of just free floating vitamin C in the product as well. And then, hopefully you still have a strong vitamin C dose by the time you get to, purchasing and shelf life and consumption.
Yeah. And that gets confusing too for the consumer, because your assumption would be if it's 1,000 milligrams of vitamin C and it's liposomal delivery, I think most people would assume that
1,000 micrograms of vitamin C is
exactly. Yeah.
Totally. No, I totally get it. I'm about to make a talk called Trust Me, I'm lying to you, the supplement.
That's perfect. And that you would like to think that some of the stuff we're talking about here is an exception, but I don't know. I don't know if it is anymore. I know things have gotten better to some degree, and I know some things have gotten, unfortunately, worse to a degree. Do you mind commenting on, some areas you think the supplement industry has moved in the right direction, and then maybe some areas where it still has plenty of room for improvement?
Absolutely. So like big players do it right. you talk about groups like Onnit, you talk about groups like Dymatize, you talk about groups like Optimum Nutrition, Muscle Tech, Ghost, so on and so forth. And I think Ghost is actually owned by someone bigger. C4, which is Nutribulk. A lot of these groups really try to do it right. They have, they've got third-party testing beyond, beyond just standard regulatory. Is there arsenic in here?
Yeah.
Or heavy metals.
Will it kill you?
Yeah. Will this straight kill you? No. Fantastic. So we have groups like that are really trying to do it right. A lot of co-manufacturers right now have to follow GMP, which is good manufacturing practices. And then they can further get certified in different areas. I know a lot of the third-party testing groups, LGC, which is the parent company of Informed Sport, Informed Choice, and NSF, both do a site check. So they will come and they will audit the spot, the co-manufacturing spot where the things are being made. And like, for example, the place I work has like 9. It's Innovative Labs, by the way. It's a co-manufacturer.
Oh, okay, cool.
But and we can talk about how we play into the whole game in a little bit if you want. But ultimately, we have people that come and audit us to make sure that there's it's safe, right? There's not bacteria growing on everything. There's good cleanup practices, everything from like how your brooms are stored to like how far away your trash cans are from the wall. Those little details. Are allergens stored above or below or even close to non-allergens, for example? It'd be really bad if you had your fish collagen above a normal like branched chain amino acid, and then all of a sudden that bag breaks.
Yep.
And there goes 2 lines of ingredients instead of 1. So there are a whole bunch of rules that now are really starting to be enforced. And the FDA, they try. They really work hard to make sure that claims that are being made are strictly for the supplement world. They don't want to see words like inflammation and cancer and diabetes even, and even some fringe words into that. So as a supplement, the main idea is, or what the FDA and the FTC, which is the Federal Trade Commission, I believe, really hawk out for certain types of claims. Like, supplements do not cure problems, even though in the literature it may be suggested that they can. Drugs cure problems, especially chronic diseases and stuff like that. So they're really tight on what you can actually say. You may remember back in the very, very beginning of COVID, my favorite example, there was a preacher, I believe it was out of Alabama or Arkansas, put together some silver supplement real quick, like threw it together kind of idea, and then started telling people that it would kill COVID. And so FDA got a hold of him pretty quick, and like had infomercials on it and everything, like went full tilt. Like didn't even try to fly under the radar. Like if you're gonna like if you're just starting and like you don't have a regulatory group that you trust or like have really put together, like definitely fly closer to the ground than to the sun,
Yeah.
So,
he just went full rocket ship.
Yeah, no, he went straight to, he thought he was going to the moon, and it turns out he went to the sun and just burned up. So he didn't make it. And luckily, right, I mean, for better or for worse, there are regulators out there that, we do or don't like. Class action lawsuits happen quite often. There was a big thing back in the early 2000s about amino spiking for protein.
Yeah.
So
you want to explain what that is for people listening?
Yeah, so that is basically the idea of that you can put, so Oh, let's go back even further. So protein is measured on purity, and that purity is called PCAS, I believe. And so that measurement basically takes the protein and measures the amount of nitrogen that comes through the basic technique. And all amino acids produce this nitrogen, no matter if it's leucine, which I would consider one of the more important amino acids, right? You have 9 essential amino acids, all the way down to some of the, the ones that play definitely supporting roles, but not a whole like full lean in benefit role. And the 9 essential amino acids, when it comes to ingredient costing, cost more if you're going to take them apart and use them individually. And so individuals will, in turn, to like get their PCAS score up, which I believe you're going for a score of 1. You can dump in extra the cheaper amino acids, and then they'll go through the test and register nitrogen, and it will come up to have a higher PCAS score. So in turn, if your product is not the absolute best, you can put some of these in there for a cheaper cost and actually get a better PCAS score on the back. So there are groups that will do stuff like that. There are other groups that will, they'll say that there are 0 calories. The calorie game is pretty important. So there are a few groups that have claimed 0 calories, especially in the pre-workout sector. And then a class action lawsuit got a hold of it, ran it through basically a calorimetry bomb, and called it out as calories, because ultimately that's considered an unfair advantage in the market. If you are especially looking at people who are body composition minded, and you are claiming 0 calories when the group, like literally right next to you on the shelf or right below you on Amazon, has somewhere between 50 and 100 calories, you are going to be, they're automatically going to click on yours. Well, what happens is if you go through those, you have, again, amino acids. For example, citrulline has a calorie count to it. And if you don't count that on your label, right, because people argue that it's not a complete protein, so it doesn't actually have an entire calorie to it. Well, actually, in the calorimetry bomb, it does. And so because of that, you have to count it on your label. So there are those regulatory bodies. And then, the fringe people are far and few between. And with all of the markings and, tests and other, watchful groups, if you can follow those groups, like you're going to be in a pretty good spot. Like you really will, which really comes forward in the quality of what supplements have become. What supplements used to be was kind of like, trust us, this is good for you. And then, you take it. And then and then it turned out later that you're taking Jack 3D, the original version. Everyone tells.
Oh, it's geranium oil, right, Doc?
What?
It's geranium oil in there.
There was just straight meth in there, wasn't there?
Well, that was the whole thing with oh God, was it? I'll remember the high tech, where I think they got busted for actually falsifying the raws imported from China, where they actually told them to put geranium extract on it, and it was just the compound that was synthetically made over there, and trying to get around the law. And I think they got sued for I don't know how many millions of dollars. So
I mean, as they should have.
100%, totally.
But yeah, I mean, like I said, it's really pushing forward, and the people that want to do it right really go heads and shoulders to do it right. Now, unfortunately, there are groups that, if you stay low enough under the radar, the FDA is a government, entity, and we joke about, close enough for government work. Well, this is a government entity, so they can't catch all the things through the net, and neither can class action lawsuits. So there are some fringe people that will ultimately have the ability to, make some more out there claims, make some more, potentially questionable products. But luckily, I would like to at least think, and I believe this is true, but ultimately, it seems like those groups don't last very long. The groups that really are staying in the mainstream are the ones that are really going forward as they evolve, and it's fantastic if you ask me. It's unfortunate to know that there are still people out there that do take advantage of people who are looking for different health benefits, different performance benefits with these different supplements, and ultimately aren't necessarily getting the best quality. But again, those who are really in the mainstream and really locked into the game are doing it right, and it's really raised the quality and the requirements of really succeeding in the supplement industry.
Yeah, I always think of just basic economics 101, right? If you're a major supplement manufacturer, one, you have income in order to afford screw ups, right? So the thing that keeps me up at night is, and this has happened before, like you get a compound from China or overseas, right, which a lot of them come from there, right? And you're doing the good thing, right? You're doing your own QC, right? So you're quality controlling it. You're going to send it out to an independent lab or your in-house lab. You're going to test it to make sure it is what it says it is, because it's they could falsify the label.
Yep.
And you find out it's not, and you just bought, let's say, 200 pounds, whatever it is, and it's supposed to be at 95%, it's at like 90%. If you're kind of a fly-by-night company and that represents a massive amount of your income, one, you now have an economic incentive, unfortunately in the wrong way, to just be like, oh, it's close enough, no one will ever know, we can't really afford to not use it. And that's the thing that kind of keeps me up at night, where if you're a bigger company, hopefully you have better quality control, you have better volumes, you've got better relationships, etc. So it's less likely to happen. And if something does happen, as a percentage, it's pretty minor. Like you can not use it and it's not going to be the end of the world. So you don't have as much of that financial pressure. Plus you have all of the incentives kind of going the other direction of, you have a reputation, you actually have a lot of things to lose if you screw things up.
Yeah. Well, actually, there is a check and balance to that too. So every product, or at least again, the people that are really minding their P's and Q's, especially with their quality department, have spec sheets for each one of their ingredients.
Yep.
Those spec sheets are basically the blueprint of what an ingredient can be. And so you'll have less than detectable of your heavy metals and stuff like that. And then, but say you're trying to, have a tea leaf extract that's 98% caffeine, right? And that's where your caffeine claim's coming from. And you get it in your lab and you run the test, and we'll say it's 89% or something along that line. You can actually, point to your spec sheet and then point to your testing and be like, you guys screwed this up.
Yep.
You're taking it back. You're going to eat this cost. And, which is again, another nice checks and balances. And then, right, you can take it to a third party lab if they dispute it. And then hopefully your analytics are correct. And then, or hopefully, I mean, either way you want to cut it, right? Either your analytics were correct and that, that's back that up, or they then come back and say, no, this is 98% caffeine. And then you go, okay, now we need a third party testing. But ultimately, right, you have the ability to, you have a sheet that basically tells you exactly what these should look like. And if they don't, you're justified in trying to, get that money back, get the thing created appropriately. Now, for those, who are feeling the squeeze of, nothing's moving right now. Like lead times are extremely extensive for these ingredients. So if it's an individual who's a little more shaky in their ethics, And, well, 95%, 98%, are they basically the same thing? Yeah. So
We're in the
is it?
90s.
Yeah, it's in the night. It's an A, So, so yeah. So that again, yeah, you gotta kind of go back and forth on that, and that's why, again, I strongly, whenever I talk to people about supplements, I work with my clientele. It's always make sure you get the third party tested ingredients on at a high level, for especially for purity, and then for efficacy as well.
Yeah, and if you're doing volume too, and something is bad and you catch it, you can hold that volume potentially over whoever sent it to you too, right? Because
Exactly.
if they screw up, they're like, well, screw you guys, we're going to go with somebody else, and they're going to be out, potentially a massive amount of business. If
Yes.
it's a fly by night thing and it was a one-off order, it's like, what did we lose?
Yeah. Yes. And yeah, let's put it in there. It'll be fine.
Yeah, and
But
we'd
a lot
have
of those
no.
people are mixing stuff in their bathtub anyway, so I don't even think they have an analytical lab.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like and this is thinking that they actually are testing stuff.
Right. Right.
God knows, who knows, just trusts the sheet and goes, I don't know, just put it in there, and
Yeah, just put it in there. Is
nothing's
this
tested at
caffeine or
the end
creatine? I
either.
don't know. I don't know. I think it's creatine. Go ahead and put it in there. Five
Right.
grams. It'll be fine.
uh, and unfortunately, some of those things do happen, which is very sad. But
No, it is still a stain on the industry, and it still comes out every now and then. But I believe it is further and further few between every year that we progress.
and do you think that's mostly because consumers are more aware, or do you think it's regulatory, or what do you think is kind of driving that main change?
I think it's kind of both. According to a lot of the trends, a lot of people are really interested in like the clean. They call it the clean label look, which is not to be
Right.
confused with clean label project, which is kind of like a third party testing group, but some of their ethics, if you ask me, are suspect. But
Hmm.
that's between them and
Sure.
whoever's questioning that. But the consumer really likes the clean, like the proprietary blend is on its way out, or you better have a study that backs up your claims that are actually on the label, because people don't want to see you know the focus blend, and it's like 5 grams, but most of it's caffeine. So, and then everything else is kind of like, yeah, a little bit of this all the
Little
way up
this,
to
little
5 grams.
that.
Yeah. So so the consumer is more aware, and the rating system exists, right? We have 5 stars on Amazon. God help you if you have 4. Like I don't know what happens to a 4 or less. So people will in turn rate and do their research. Does this product deliver on, do I feel it? Do I not? Do I, all these other great things. So the consumer is getting much more aware, because they know that there are health benefits out there, but they also know that there are some of these shady situations. So they want to make sure that everything is kosher. And then again, yeah, regulatory is going up. Like, is GMP on the packaging? Is where they're holding it a GMP warehouse? Is where they make it into GNC co-manufacturer, like GMP at bare minimum. But then most people, again, ramp up their certifications to look better both on their label, and if you're a warehouse or a co-manufacturer, you look better towards people who are wanting to run their product with you.
Oh, that's great.
Mm-hmm.
And do you think the next level is having more transparency on the label? So two companies I do some stuff with. So Charlotte's Web has a thing, I think it's still on their products now, where you can scan a QR code and it'll pull up the COA, right? Certificate of Analysis
Yep.
of the entire product, all the testing, everything that's done for that actually particular lot number and that particular batch,
Yeah.
which is great. My buddy's Ben Escrow, who runs Elemental Formulations. I'm on their advisory team as a disclosure. But they have a thing where it's similar. You can scan the code and it'll tell you basically traceability of everything that's in there, what was actually tested. And according to him, their use of that feature was actually quite low, which I was a little bit surprised by. But I think it would be great if more companies would do that. But then the catch-22 is they're probably only going to do that if consumers start demanding sort of that level of transparency. I mean, a lot of it right now, I think, is more, and I'm 100% guilty of this myself, just brand recognition. And yeah, from everyone I've talked to, I think they're doing a good job. And okay, cool. I haven't seen anything bad happen.
Yeah. Yeah, I haven't tested positive for cocaine yet, so
right.
Let's get another box.
Oh, but I've never tested. Well, whatever.
I believe that, especially with products like CBD,
yes,
and this was kind of like the game not even 2 years ago. A lot of people were worried that, where the CBD compound and CBD is the active compound found in hemp. Now, what everyone was worried about was where that CBD was coming from. Was it coming from hemp or was it coming from marijuana, which is a type of hemp, right? And we all know that our good friend Mary Jane has a few other little fun factoids with her as well. And so people were really worried that with CBD would come THC. And and especially individuals who are, servicemen and women, government employees, or those who work for, a company with a strict testing policy, right? The benefits of CBD were very, very exciting. And especially, right, it's CBD, maybe we shouldn't be using this, but we're going to use it anyway. And there was that kind of little fun thing that came with it. But ultimately, they're worried about the THC factor. And so a lot of groups were trying to show that there wasn't detectable THC in their CBD products. And even now, right? So CBD, it used to be a real murky, how do we get through this situation? Now it's become a little more mainstream. People have accepted it a little bit better. And with that, there are 2 testing bodies that actually now test for the purity of the hemp that come through. I know that I think that they call it informed hemp from LGC, and that's one that will actually pull up. They test for, or maybe I just, toted a program that doesn't exist yet. But basically, they're trying to, groups are trying to put together, ways to test for the CBD content, the THC content, and then the terpene content. Because if you look at the WADA restrictions, right, CBD is fine for the most part. THC is a problem, and then there are other terpenes that also show up as a problem. Yet they don't know what to do with them yet. So
is that just because WADA put them on the list, or is it because they screw up with detection and think you're hiding something with THC?
Potentially. So remember, the WADA list has both maskers and metabolites of different products or different ingredients, specifically, performance enhancing drugs. So if that's one of the things that a lot of people will forget. So necessarily, does an aromatase blocker, do anything for you? Arguably, maybe a little bit, but most people that are taking aromatase blockers are taking testosterone supplementation. So it's kind of like, well, why would you be taking an aromatase blocker if you're not taking testosterone? So you're out. That actually, I think that's what busted. Isn't that what busted Jim Jones back in the 2000 teens from UFC? Am I correct in that?
Could be. Yeah, I think it
blew up somebody. I remember that.
Yeah, I think it was an accessory agent. Then they started doing more further testing. I'd have to go back and double check, but it's pretty common because like some of the advice that people get to get around drug tests is not always the best advice either.
No, it's not.
So it's like, do this and this will change your ratio Oh yeah, oops, I forgot to tell you they test for that too. Oops, sorry,
Oh
my
yeah.
bad.
Oh, I just got the most recent WADA CMA. Sorry.
Yeah.
So
Well, that's good to know about CBD because
yeah, yeah,
you can find
absolutely.
older literature showing that a lot of the testing, I mean, the THC amount, like they weren't off by a little bit, it was off by a lot.
Yeah.
So and understandably so, that even if you're a company from a pure, not only customer, we'll leave it at satisfaction, but legality wise, if you go over, was it 0.3%, I think, is regulated in the Department of Ag is hemp, and over that is, basically breaking federal law. It's like,
Yeah, I believe
yeah,
you're
you
correct.
may
Yeah.
want to pay attention to that.
Absolutely. And here's the crazy thing, and I've had multiple debates with this with different testing groups. Like, we're not going to get worse at testing compounds and for compounds. So all right, so all of a sudden, you take your all of you go in for your drug screening test and you take CBD, and it didn't have traceable amounts of THC back in 2018, but it's 2025 now, and they got the newest, greatest, latest that goes down to parts per 100 billion, and now all of a sudden you fail because you have THC in your system. It's like, oh, that's rough. So it's I it's going to be a weird game where testing capabilities go up, and so what does that mean for regulatory rates on the other side?
Yeah. And at what point can you argue that it's just in the environment and your testing is so hyper specific now that the physiologic area, it just doesn't matter? You know what I
Right.
mean? Like,
I totally
okay,
agree.
so you were at 1 part per bazillion for THC. Obviously, you're not sitting around like smoking 4 joints a day, right? You know, you think you could argue that that was in the environment or something else, right? But
Surely, I don't know, but yeah,
but that's not the answer companies want to hear, right? They want like a hard line in the sand of a zero tolerance or whatever crazy things are going on. But at some point, you can't you can't do it. Like, I think what did they try to look for, like PCB testing? They were trying to find what was a norm, I think, when they were looking at testing, and they couldn't find any norms. Like, they had to test blood before PCBs, I think, were even invented. That it had become so everywhere in the environment, if you test down to a small enough level, that everybody had it.
yeah, no, yeah.
Oh, super interesting. Um, on the CBD area, do you think other cannabinoids will become more popular? So my bias is in this area. A couple of years ago, I was working with just a few companies, and I'm like, well, right now, THC is the only cannabinoid that is illegal, right? All the other ones are fair game. All the other
Mhm.
ones don't have any psychoactive qualities unless you get super crazy high doses for one or two of the other ones.
Right.
But manufacturing of them to isolate them was just stupid expensive,
Yeah.
right? So it just wasn't really that feasible. But I'm like, at some point, kind of like you were saying with testing, you are going to, manufacturing will advance to a point where it's going to be cost effective to get CBG, CBN, which we're starting to see all these other compounds
Yeah.
show up on the market now. Do you think that's kind of the next CBD sort of trend?
I actually have seen a few at some of the conferences and stuff that I've been to that really tote the CBG and CBN. Um, Obviously, the more bigger compounds with CB in the front of it are, I think, are of the most interest.
Yeah.
Now that doesn't fly in the face of the fact that there are potentials for the terpenes themselves,
Yes.
that come with them. And I hate the term entourage effect. I really do. But like,
Yeah.
no one else has given me a better word. So I do kind of believe that I'm more of a holistic person when it comes to these kinds of these types of interventions. So I believe that there are some benefits that to taking the entirety of the plant, the broader spectrum. But I would like to see the problem with that is, we have research that already says that the CBs, I'm going to call them CBD, CBG, CBN, have some sort of benefit. And I haven't seen too much research. Now, granted, I've been kind of out of the CBD cannabinoid research for a minute, so this may have come out. And if someone out there knows about it, please let me know. But like, I've never seen like terpene mix plus CBD versus CBD alone versus terpene mix, and what those potentials could be for stress, sleep, inflammation, even though you're not supposed to say inflammation, things like that. I think it's kind of an ingredient that kind of hasn't really had it sounds weird, but like really hasn't had its day in the sun yet, because people got so excited about CBD, it seems like they totally just hopped on that train and didn't even want to investigate the rest of the potential benefits of all these other compounds that are found in this plant. And I feel like there's definitely more to flesh out there than what the market has shown and what the research has shown at the current time.
Yeah, no, I mean, I would agree with that. I mean, the first time I heard entourage effect was at I don't know, some shop in Oregon. I don't remember.
That lines up. I was going to say
and
Washington,
I'm like,
Oregon.
This sounds like a made up term. I don't know. And so I looked at the research on it, and surprisingly, the research does actually kind of support it. I mean, Russo's published a fair amount of stuff on that, and I've kind of changed my mind, and I would agree with you that the interactions of all the other compounds are what seem to provide a lot of the benefits. I mean, obviously THC is the main one you feel if it's legal in your state. And we're just now getting an accurate like chemovar profile of what's even in there. Yeah. Right. And what you find out is that, the old stuff between, it's an indica strain and, all the kind of words that just get thrown around don't really mean anything anymore. Right. All the strains have been so crossbred that everything is a hybrid. Right. So if you did gas chromatography spec of it, well, you have to compare it to a known thing. That's 100% of the thing you're comparing it to. Yeah. And you just can't get 100% indica, for example. It just doesn't exist. So you go a level deeper and you're like, oh, well, maybe it's the chemovars that are providing these different effects. And it seems like some of these chemovars that are more, relaxing and have sedation effects do tend to kind of show up in more indica strains, for example. Yeah. So there is some little bit of truth to it, but the whole thing has just been kind of blown out of proportion because it's an easy sell, right? Yeah. If you want something that's more, energetic, do this, or you want a hybrid, do this, or you want, to be more relaxed, then you have to do this indica strain. And yeah.
Well, I mean, to kind of come full circle, that's kind of how a lot of these herbals are being pointed to now. And like, if you get more into mainstream supplements again, you really have to start to pay attention to the active compounds in it. Like Huperzine serrata is a fantastic plant. Again, I think it's under research. So I like to use it a lot in my formulation, but unless it's like, you have to know that the active compound that does the thing is called Huperzine A, and you have to know how much of that is in the actual, farming of the plant. Because to your point, you can breed these plants to produce these type, like to lean more towards these type of compounds or X type of compounds. Yep. And like, you don't want just elderberry. You want the anthocyanins and the polyphenols in it that are actually going to help you do the thing. So when people talk about looking at people say like organic apples versus GMO apples or something like that. and like one's got like a nice full red color to it, and then the other one's kind of like looks a little sickly. You don't want to eat the sickly one, right? It's lost some of its oomph. So it's the same idea with anything that grew in the ground has the potential to be, pushed one way or the other depending on the generations of cultivation, and you want to make sure that you're getting best in your product.
Yeah, I think wasn't David Sinclair talked about that as I could be bastardizing the term, but like a xenohormetic response where we can sense stress in the environment via the polyphenols that are incorporated into the food that we eat.
Oh,
which I thought was interesting, because if you think about, if you have, let's say, just with the same plant species or the same plant, right? You look at, cannabis, coffee, grapes that make wine, the exact, literally same strand, but exposed to different stressors in terms of, water or, too much hydration or nutrients, like changes what is actually produced in it, which to me is just fascinating. And his argument, I don't know if it's from him, but is that most of those changes are due to stressors in the environment, right? So like grapes, they don't want to overwater them too much. They want them to be dry for a period of time because it produces different compounds that get incorporated into the wine. And that in humans, it's a way of determining, are you in kind of maybe more of a stressful environment or not, or maybe those compounds serve to make people more resilient to different stressors and stuff. So it's, yeah, you go down the rabbit hole, it gets kind of fascinating.
Yeah, that sounds like a pretty deep one.
Yeah. And I've thought about that too, of like, why do we crave in nature like certain things, right? We do tend to go towards things that are more complex and complicated, right? The wines that people would agree are more complex tend to be more extreme areas and have more compounds in them, right? And the extraction process and how do you make it, and even just like, what is it, coffee has like 300 and some different polyphenols in it, and and it's just the human thing also to just to want to tweak with all that stuff too.
Oh yeah, no, totally. Can we make it better? Well, should we?
Right.
No, I asked could we, not should we.
Right. And you had mentioned the Huperzine, which has been around for quite a while. And I mean, my bias on it was initially, I wasn't really, it made me nervous, but it's been used for so long and in so many products that I don't think there's probably as much concern as what I probably thought there was initially, right? So if you want to explain what it is, I believe it's what acetylcholinesterase inhibitor, and how it works and kind of why it's in a fair amount of products, but it's one of those things not many people talk about.
Right. So basically what it does is it helps stop the thing that stops acetylcholine. So basically, I mean, it's the brake for the brake, if you will. So
right.
It's not necessarily a gas pedal. So we're not like pushing more acetylcholine down. And acetylcholine is a messenger in the nervous system for, just to make sure everyone's on the same playing field. So ultimately, we want something in our body to break to basically turn that off sooner or later, because we want to relax. Like, it's good to have, stimulation of certain pathways, but we also need to be able to turn them off in our body too, or we're not going to be, successful humans at all. So this basically is a compound that will help slow down the breaking of the messenger between neurons. And you do find it in a lot of products, but everyone leans on the caffeine because I think, right, caffeine cures everything. I've decided, right? It can make you feel better. It can make you work harder. It can make you focus more intently. Like it's one of the necessaries, right? Everyone knows it. There's no question about it. It's like, oh, you did a caffeine study. Why'd you do a caffeine study? We know all the things, it seems like, but then I say that, and then some paper's going to come out tomorrow that proves me wrong.
I'm just getting flashbacks to, I had to help with the ISSN position stand on caffeine. So I was one of the main authors on it. And
oh yeah,
3.5 years of my life, like trying to sort out just, oh, and we had so many references, we actually had to start cutting references out,
I was gonna
you
say
know.
that's like one of those where it's just like you're buried
Oh, it
in
was
your
insane.
research, literally. So ultimately, yeah. So a lot of people like to pair the two together. Huperzine A is an extremely low dose
Yeah,
ingredient.
micrograms, right?
Yeah, micrograms. So, and I think like, which works out to be 1% of Huperzia serrata. So you'll either see Huperzia serrata at like 40 or 20, and then you'll see and sometimes in parentheses you'll see Huperzine A at 1%. So then you do the calculation. So it works out to be about 400 to 200 micrograms, and that's about the sweet spot. Like, there's no way I would suggest anything above 400 micrograms for Huperzine A, or yeah, Huperzine A.
Yeah.
It just seems like one of those that's like it's real easy to like overtip real quick, you know. And so I'd rather play conservative with that ingredient than extremely, loose like you can with some of the other ones.
And I think in Alpha Brain, that was one of the main active ingredients in it, correct?
Yeah. So when Aubrey put that together, he did a lot of really hard work and did a phenomenal job in his research, working with different, you know, resources, all kinds of input got put into that to that product, and really landed on Huperzine. Really had a lot of belief in it, and it really played out for him on the back end. Again, Alpha Brain is a multi-ingredient cognitive performance supplement. So there are a lot of different things playing in concert with one another. But I believe that Huperzine A is one of the main actors of that supplement. Phenomenal supplement. If you haven't tried it, hop on it. Disclaimer: I used to work for Onnit. I don't anymore. So
Yeah. Yeah, and that was the first product I saw that used a pretty hefty dose of Huperzine A and not super heavy on the caffeine, especially when you consider the time period of when it came out, where,
mhm.
the more hardcore stimulant you could make, like that was just assumed to be
Better.
better.
Yeah. And in fact, there's actually in Alpha Brain, in regular Alpha Brain, the OG, there is no, to my recollection, there is no caffeine in it.
I don't think so. Yeah.
Yeah, it is a caffeine free, nootropic, and I mean, I recommend it to people. So,
Yeah, and
and
that's
I
what
don't get
was
a dime for it. So just so everyone knows that as well.
and that's what was shocking to me too, especially, obviously you can look at a couple of the studies that were done, but just in terms of sales, right? Because we know consumers who are buying that type of product are just not going to buy it again if they don't see some effect from it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And there wasn't like beta alanine in there to make them feel twitchy or anything like that. So that to me was actually super. I just always found that very interesting.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, sales don't lie. If
Yeah,
a thing works, especially in the consumer age, everything's one click away. If not, like, oh, you thought it, and all of a sudden it's in your Amazon cart somehow. Like, if the things don't work, like I said, they don't live very long. So the fact that product in particular has not only made enough waves to continue to produce and sell for Onnit, but it was probably one of the things that pulled Unilever towards them.
yeah, because they've
And
sold a shitload of Alpha Brain.
oh, it's
Like no
beyond a
joke.
shitload. I'm pretty sure it's a shit ton,
Yeah,
actually.
literally. Yeah, and that was also, I think, and I'm good friends with John Wolf and some of the guys there too, of just a perfect merging of products and price point and being new and innovative with perfect timing and just this image of being one of the cool kids.
Yeah,
Like
it
you
helps.
you got the people that sponsored, like people who bought into the company early on and Brogan and everything else. It was just like this sort of perfect storm of all these things coming together at the same time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Super cool. What do you think the future for supplements are, especially if you look at, I'll say, pre-workout areas and then just in general? The reason I have pre-workout separate is because I'm curious what your thoughts are on the general trend has been we need more hardcore stimulants. But when we do that, oops, the FDA kind of puts the kibosh on that. So like how much longer do you play the whack-a-mole game in that direction, or do you try to do, kind of like what Onnit did and kind of steer in a little bit different direction?
So the this is a good question. Ultimately, you see a lot of the main game now. I haven't seen anything above this, but there's a company called Bucked Up, and I
What
think
is the
they
name of the
have
company?
Bucked Up.
Bucked Up.
Yeah, and their main thing is deer antler. Actually,
Oh no, that's back again.
well, it's in their pre-workout, I
Oh
believe.
no.
That's what I said, but it's not for me to judge. They're the ones making it. They also have a whole other line of different things. But ultimately, yes, they leaned into the deer antler idea. But ultimately, that pre-workout that they have is, I believe it's called Woke AF, and I think it's like 400 milligrams, 450 milligrams of caffeine.
Woo.
I would like to hope that people start paying attention a little bit more to the research, and more caffeine is not better, especially depending on how you caffeinate yourself through the earlier parts of the day, especially.
Yeah, and body
I know
size and what you're doing and everything else.
exactly right. So according to body size, right, isn't it 3 milligrams per kilogram?
Yeah, for strength and power, right, your range is going to be from the literature 3 to 6 mgs per kg.
Yep, yep. So for the average guy, I would like to think that 300 milligram is where it's kind of the sweet spot, especially if you're like a hardcore lifter. Obviously, as you get smaller, that goes down. As you get bigger, that goes up a little bit. But people really, it's still kind of that game, and then put in all the other cool things. Another group um, that looks into it is Redcon. I think they're another
Mm-hmm.
group that kind of leans Redcon One. I think that they lean in a little harder. They're a little closer to, because that's actually what I use at the current moment, mostly because they've got great deals on Amazon most of the time. But they're about in that 300 350 range, I
Yeah.
believe. I'd really like to see, right, a lot more with um I've got nothing against caffeine. Like I said, it's the life blood of all production, it seems like. But
Well, it's like the perfect ingredient.
yeah,
I mean,
no,
if you
it's
think about
fantastic.
it, it's like easy to work with, easy to dose. Everybody knows what it is.
Yep,
Dirt fucking cheap.
yep. The only problem is that it's bitter, and if
It's very bitter.
you can just hide. And actually, it's the in a taste test, caffeine is the like baseline, like, for bitter. Like, it's the thing that gets tested against, actually.
Yeah,
Um,
but people have almost been skewed even towards bitter things with energy drinks and how they've been flavored and stuff too in one
oh, totally,
area.
because
So
it's easier to hide the caffeine.
exactly.
Of course, you're going to put in Spring Break 2020 instead of
Yeah.
Smooth Fruit Punch. But yeah, I would like to see a lot more use of. I'm a big herbals guy. I do like cordyceps are great. I'm also a big fan of cardiovascular support through citrulline and arginine, in concert with one another. I'm not a big fan of leaning on one or the other.
Hmm.
Personally, I like to when I look for ingredients, I like to find ingredients that support the entirety of the system. So, for example, if you want to talk about neural communication, I'd like to see um, the building block for acetylcholine, the thing that pushes acetylcholine, and then like we talked about with Huperzine A, something that kind of breaks stops the brake on acetylcholine messaging instead of just one thing. The same idea with the combination of arginine and citrulline. If for those who don't know anything about nitrogen generation, which is the vasodilator, right? Or did I say nitrogen?
Yeah, you're talking about nitric oxide, right?
Yeah, nitric oxide. But
I was wondering, I paused for a minute. I'm like, where's he going with this?
Wait, this could get interesting. Let's go. Sorry, I kind of got on a roll. But ultimately, you want to see they play together very nicely. One pathway supports the next pathway, which supports the next pathway. And if you can stimulate or add to both of those pathways, you're going to get a much better, in my opinion, response than just, all right, we're just going to put in 12 grams of citrulline and hope this plays out.
Would you add nitrates to that then too?
I would definitely. So, right. So get all three. The problem is if you go back to
conversion.
Actually, no, it's legal right now. It's very hard to put together nitrates with amino acids and stuff like that due to a
really
patent. Yes.
Oh,
yeah.
I was wondering about that because I kept seeing them separate, and I'm like, I know I'm not the only numbnut who thought of this.
Yeah, this is like peanut butter and jelly. Why?
Right.
Why is no one doing this? Well, one person did it, and somehow way back when, I don't even know how old the patent is, but basically it was like, yeah, why wouldn't you patent amino acids and nitrates? And no one was like, that's an obvious, combination. Why does this get a patent? Right, because isn't a patent like a cornering of like the market in like some super special way?
Yeah, it's supposed to be novel, and there's a whole bunch of other things that patent attorneys yell at me about all the time.
Yeah, that's patented. This is supposed to be new. Oh, my fault. So no one really was really like, yeah, that's obvious.
And I'm guessing either the said licensing fee is really high, or said nameless person
or
will
whatever.
sue your ass if you do anything with it.
Oh yeah. And there's actually on YouTube, I have seen some YouTube footage of the dude serving people at conferences.
I think I know who we're talking about, but we'll leave his name out.
That's right. That's as far as we're going, and I guarantee that's exactly who it is.
Yep. Yeah, because I had a similar idea for, I won't name the ingredient, but we'll say it had a nitrate attached to it. And yeah, I asked a buddy of mine, and he's like, oh yeah. I was like, oh shit, it's that guy? He's like, yep. And funny enough, like 6 months after that, I was supposed to be doing some consulting with this guy who was starting a supplement company. I said, okay, fine. Like, just send me your list of what you're doing. I'll look it over. And, if we, looks like we can help each other, then, here's my contract, etc. And I look at it, and, said ingredient is in there. And I'm like, are you sure you want to use this? He's like, oh yeah, this, that. And I'm like, do you know anything about the history of this ingredient? Have you gotten a licensing agreement to pay to use it? And he looks at me and he goes, fuck that. We just put it in there. Yeah. And I'm like, okay, that would be probably at least a $10,000 to $100,000 mistake. Easy. And he looks at me, and I'm like, go look it up. It's not hard to find. Trust me. It's really not hard to find.
Yeah. I wish I was lying to you.
Yeah.
I said that.
And I thought at this point he'd be like, oh, wow, this guy knows what's going on. And he's like, whatever. And then he got mad at me, and I never got a contract with him.
Yeah. But normally when you tell people that
you're wrong.
Yeah. I wouldn't, but I mean.
Oh God. A little bit side note for choline. Do you like CDP, acetylcholine, or alpha GPC, or do you have any preference of even like older school versions?
I'm a big fan of acetylcholine.
Yeah, me too.
There's actually a patented or a name brand, if you will, called Cognizant. Again, I don't get anything for them, but I'm a huge fan of their brand. They have a lot of good clinical data,
Yeah,
And
Renshaw's done most of that work, and it's actually impressive. It's like,
yeah,
whoa, this is actually really good.
yeah, and it's not like a monstrous dose. Sometimes
No.
alpha GPC, I think you have to get closer to a gram,
Yeah.
especially for performance, I think. But if you're just trying to lock in mentally, the cognizant is very good. And that's how I do a lot of my formulation and recommendation is how much literature is on blank.
Yeah.
You don't want to, I want to make sure that like if I'm going to invest in this money, I want to really hedge my bets with, a good stack of papers that say send it, instead of like one off shot from, some back lab that, I don't know how I feel about this journal in general.
Yeah. And again, nice people will leave their names out, but there's other labs that are known for just supplement research. And again, it doesn't mean that it's all bad,
Right.
but you have to look and see, who paid for the research, how was the study done, and it's the old catch 22 of, hey, if you're manufacturing a supplement, technically you don't have to do a single damn study, right?
Right.
There's no requirement that says you have to do a study on your finished product. So on one hand, I'm like, I give them kudos for spending the money to do the study because they're not cheap.
Yep.
On the other hand, you can look at the history of different places and how many things just come out positive all the time.
Yeah.
I'm like, maybe it's true, maybe it's not, but those are the ones I go over with a very fine tooth comb.
I do. Yeah. And that's I mean, that's where our like training and expertise really gives us a leg
Yes.
up. Unfortunately, for the masses, they see the one white paper. A lot of branded ingredients will come into different brands. So branded ingredient, if you look on the back of your supplement facts panel, it'll say, like, for example, we're talking about cognizant.
Yep.
It'll say acetylcholine, and then in parentheses, it'll say cognizant. And then if it's like, and then they'll probably have like its little
Logo.
badge or something somewhere the on the bottle. KSM ashwagandha is another big one that a lot
Mm-hmm.
of people will see. And I mean that stuff's everywhere. Um, but basically they'll come in with their white paper and they'll be like, oh look, our study showed blank. And then I'm like, okay. But then to your point, you have to have a little higher thought and go again, look at the lab, maybe I'm not going to straight up question someone's ethics. That's almost unethical in my book, unless, there's true reason to question the
Yeah.
ethics,
And you don't know their ethics. You just
Yeah,
you notice patterns over time that makes you go, what's going on
absolutely.
here? I
And
should
that's,
probably look closer.
yeah, and that's when you have to go like, okay, what is this? Like, is this a multi-ingredient performance supplement? If it is, like, what are some of the buzzwords for, like, what are some of the ingredients? Look up those ingredients. Do those ingredients have similar, right? They don't have to have the exact same, but similar reportings back towards the claims that they're looking at, and stuff like that. It's also important to know, like, you can read a supplement facts panel very similar to how you would read a nutrition facts panel, especially for like other ingredients. So like even in the proprietary blend, the first thing mentioned has the most of it, right? So if
Yeah, I think
you're,
it's by weight or something, isn't it? Or by amount.
yes, it's by weight. You're
Yeah.
absolutely correct. Or which is also kind of plays
Interesting.
into percentage of, percentage of the formula itself. But ultimately, right, you look at it and say, okay, so this thing has, 300 milligrams of this focus blend, and the first thing's caffeine. I know that you need at least, 200 milligrams for a performance claim, a physical performance claim of caffeine. So there's a good shot there's 200 milligrams of caffeine in here at least. Go look at the research that was suggested. It's that kind of thing. But know
Yeah.
that, like, if it's in milligrams and creatine's in that performance blend, you're not going to get the benefits of creatine, you know? So those kind of ideas.
Any thoughts on like some of the newer, I guess, stimulants that are on the market, like teacrine, dinylene, and I saw that they're doing some work now on paraxanthine, right? So the second downstream metabolite to caffeine, which once I heard that, I was running around screaming, going, why didn't I think of that? I didn't think you could even do this. I thought it had been done and didn't pan out, but I never bothered to ask the question, and so I'm left out. So
I'll always ask the
props
question,
to them
right?
for doing it.
Yeah, good for them. I mean, I'm interested. So, right. So the thing that everyone kind of rags on caffeine about, right, is the crash. Everyone
Right.
talks about the crash. And how normally like it's a really high peak and then good luck depending on how much you took, right? Um, I do believe in teacrine, but I believe in it in a different way than a lot of people look at it. Teacrine, when I put something together, I use it more as a safety net to my caffeine dosing. So basically, between the two, right, we talk about the peak of caffeine we just did.
Mm-hmm.
Teacrine has a much lower peak, but has a much longer, sustainability of basically activeness, if you will. So basically, how it's absorbed and how it's metabolized in the body is slightly different than caffeine. So it, in turn, has a slightly different pharmacokinetic response and physiological response to that pharmacological response in if you look at the literature. So I use it more of like, okay, you're going to come down off of your caffeine somewhere between, depending on how much you took, large asterisks there.
Yeah.
Somewhere in that like 3 hour, you're going to start to slow down a lot. Like you'll feel it again, right? Because isn't pharmacokinetics of caffeine like 30 minutes to an hour?
Yeah, peak
And then it
is
peaks
30 to
out.
45 minutes. And then after that, it's depends on are you fast or slow metabolizer. But
Right.
yeah, you get 2, 3, 4-ish hours if you want to just ballpark it on
Yeah.
average, I would say.
I mean,
Yeah, I
we're
agree with
not
that.
like real scientists on this podcast, are we? We're just kind of from the hip.
Yeah, I just spitball it. It's 90%, bro. You're good. You're good.
Yeah, it's 90%. It's a podcast. It's close enough. Anyway, so along that line, so as in theory, as caffeine comes down, teacrine is starting to build itself in the body, and so so I use a little lower dose. Now that's not to say that it doesn't have an efficacious dose that's much higher. I just use it as more of a catch at the bottom for people so they don't get thrown through the ground, and all of a sudden 6 o'clock rolls around and they can't make it to bed without another cup of coffee.
Yeah.
So I'm very interested in teacrine. Teacrine is slightly older than dynamine, so both of those are patented ingredients that come from a group called Compound Solutions. Compound Solutions has a lot of great ingredients they do. Again, I don't get paid by this group either. And they actually try to do research on their patented ingredients that if you go to their website, you can actually find a lot of their, scientific methodologies. Dynamine is extremely young when it comes to these this type of research. And I believe the main one that they got posted so far is dynamine in concert with teacrine and caffeine together.
Yeah, that sounds correct if I remember right.
Yeah, I think I just looked at it yesterday. I think it's 125 mgs of caffeine and then 75 mgs of dynamine and 50 mgs of teacrine, I believe. But ultimately, if you put all those together, that should be a much lower dose than the 300. That's lower than the normal 300 dose that I was talking about earlier for caffeine. So I believe that study showed some significant improvements with gamers. And
yeah, I think it was an e-gamer study if I remember right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and so how they cognitively focus and perform better in some realm or the other. But so I'm interested. You know, caffeine's going to be king. Like I don't know. It's too easily accessible. Like you said, it's dirt cheap. It's you know, you drink it like it's coffee, right?
Yeah.
It's extremely easily accessible. Um, and so like those two, I like them. I like them as a novel ingredient. I want to see some more physical performance, um, you know, research on them. And I'd like to see some more like, I, I'm a big fan of like, how much do you actually need?
Mm-hmm.
You know, I hate two things. I hate groups that overdose. And when I say overdose, I mean either do something astronomical, like 1.5 times the clinical dose of whatever ingredient just to make sure that it really bangs, or um, no pun intended with bang, by the way. Um, and
uh,
and then or they just throw anything and everything that has some sort of like claim. So for example, there's a couple groups that will, I call it the kitchen sink
kitchen
theory.
sink. Yeah,
They just, every ingredient that could possibly insert blank, we're putting it in these pills. Oh, side note, you have to take 9 pills dose,
yeah.
right? So it's just like, or it's like a protein 25-gram scoop that goes into the shit that for the whatever, because it's so many different ingredients and then you got to flavor it on top of that. I'm staunchly against it. Um, so ultimately, I would like to see with these two ingredients, again, very exciting preliminary research, but I would like to see like how much do you actually need? Is there a, you know, a relative amount that we could really start to point to for both of these two ingredients? But right now, I mean, a new ingredient's a new ingredient, right? So
Mm-hmm.
you can't just, oh, there's not enough research on it. Well, it could be pretty novel in general. So you want to start to, so that's where I like to hash my bets, and where a lot of smart groups hash their bets. So they may have, for example, dynamine in there, but they may also, with their claim, have the claim supported by, you know, caffeine or something along that line.
Yeah.
So in turn, when dynamine turns out to be like the new latest greatest thing, that group can turn around and say, you know, hey, we were using this first.
Mm-hmm.
You know, trust us. We're the dynamine group. You know, or something along that line. So, um, yeah. And when it comes to like I said, when I formulate for groups, I will. You know, I'm very open to novel research. I'm very open to new research. I think it's one of the most important, um, you know, characteristics of a scientist. If something shows, you know, something shows out totally cool, like I'm totally down. I need a little more research to really like support that. So I'm going to give another ingredient to support that new and upcoming ingredient for my new product that I'm putting out. So like I said, dynamine would definitely pair with caffeine, as it's been shown to in that clinical study that they ran.
Yeah, I've I like the guys at Compound Solutions. I've done some stuff with them in the past. They've always been super good, and just companies that are doing new and novel like raw ingredients it's just a hard place to be in, and I don't think people understand how expensive it is to get just a new raw material to the market and have research supporting it, etc.
I totally
um,
agree.
I I got a bunch of samples of teacrine early from them and from some of the guys who helped develop it. And I don't know, I took a shit ton and nothing happened, but that could just be me. And that's just a complete N of one. So I think, like you mentioned, in combination to me makes a lot more sense. A little bit I know about it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then, as you mentioned too, from a formulating standpoint, you're stuck between this rock and a hard place of your incentive is to have something new, to have something novel. It makes you different from everybody else, which everyone is trying to do. but yet it still has to work at the same time. You've got to back up the claims that you have. You're kind of always kind of riding this edge of just the, like, I think that's the art, right? Just the right mix of all of those, because other people will go batshit crazy on everything that's brand new with like no support.
Yeah, zero support. It's
Yeah.
like, oh, I wouldn't do that. Well, and the other thing too, especially is right, it's always the race of, you know, the newest, latest, and greatest. The other part that a lot of people don't think about is you have to educate your consumer
Yes.
on what that ingredient is, what it does. I mean, especially in the supplement world, it's been a pretty hard uphill battle for supplements ever since, I would argue, the 90s, right? A lot of bad actors in the front.
Oh yeah.
And then all of a sudden, you know, supplements are bad. You know, you got the snake oil salesman from all the way back in the 700s.
Yeah. Even just the ephedra being illegal, I think kind of tarnished a lot of the supplement industry, I think. And
yeah,
that wasn't even necessarily the supplement industry. And, you know, as you know, if you look at a lot of the research on it, I mean, shit, the one study I think was sponsored, the author, I think his name was Boozer, sponsored by NIH, showed that ephedra within normal amounts over, I think, 8 to 12 weeks was actually pretty safe.
yeah.
But it, you know, none of that mattered. It was just like, oh, this happened. Oh, we're going to pull this now. Oh, look at all those evil supplement companies. How dare they?
Right. Court of public opinion is always the hardest.
Right.
No matter what, that's the answer.
Yep.
Yeah, and it's that's definitely one that really sparked the big, you know, question, like how can you even suggest supplements? And I'm like, well, the same way that you guys suggest pharmaceuticals, but that's not even there. You know, how dare me, you know, talk
You
about
crazy
stuff
person.
like that. God. So, but anyway, so right, we have to educate our consumer, and that takes time, that takes money, that takes marketing dollars. So it's a game where you kind of got to be like, well, trust us, you know, you trust insert, you know, known ingredient. But look, if you know, just look over here at, you know, this brand new nuanced ingredient. We believe that this is how it's going to support this system that we put together, and, you know, give it a try, and hopefully it works out for everybody. And it may flop, like it may. There's the potential, right? You put too many stimulants together, and it's a curve in psychology, but it stands pretty strong across the entirety of physiology. It's that stimulation curve.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, as you psych yourself up, there's
arousal.
Arousal. That's it. Yeah. So as you have more arousal, you have an increase in performance, and then ultimately there's a breaking point where too much arousal will ultimately diminish your returns and actually hurt your performance. So and again, that's shown in that caffeine curve. That's how we came to the conclusion of that 3 to 6 mgs of caffeine per kilogram. So ultimately, right? So that's another question. So how do you make a claim on with, you know, this multi-ingredient blank supplement when you don't know if you overdid it? Now all of a sudden, not only does this thing not work, but it's worse. Like it makes you worse. So those are the weird, you know, kind of nuances of up and coming. But you don't want to be the last person on, while there's like 85 now. There's 85 papers that show that, you know, X supplement works. But yeah, we all knew that a long time ago. Why are you just now creating a blank supplement? So
do you use yohimbine HCl or yohimbine, like both the herb or the HCl version at all?
I have prescribed it for a few individuals I know, and I'm pretty cautious with it, to be honest.
It seems to kind of fallen out of favor.
It seems to, and I think it's because a lot of people just have like a weird response to it. Like a lot of sweats. A lot of people that I've really talked to, I'm like, look, here's some research. I'm going to dose you based on this research, but you know, just be hyper aware that as you take this, like what's going on in your body. obviously I'm a much bigger fan of, diet intervention and in those types of more oldie but goodie routes. But
Sure.
there, there's always someone, who's like, just give me the fat burner. And I'm like,
Yeah.
all right, I don't think you like, yes, I know it says fat burner on it, but it doesn't do it the way you think it does.
Yeah.
One. And two, like you're if you feel it, you're gonna feel it. Like there's no like, oh, like small dose where you're just, all of a sudden you're happy go lucky and your fat cells are just, slowly melting away. It's it's a full body attack that you're gonna feel 100% out.
Yeah. I have this theory that I can't prove, and I have zero data of it, that the herb might have been bad or not produced correctly, and that there's an alkaloid in there that was responsible for more of the side effects. Because the more pure HCl version, again, this is completely anecdotal, doesn't seem to have all the weirdo side effects that people were reporting for quite a while. And it appears to be a pretty strong stimulant. And I've talked to some other guys about this too, that when you've added it in with a little bit of caffeine, that aggression tends to go up a little bit. So I've
Oh,
had this theory of, if you could get past and do more testing with that and caffeine and, like an alpha GPC or CDP, and particularly only we're marketing it to like aggressive weightlifters, I'm like, that would be interesting to see what the results were. Or maybe it backfires, like you said, and everybody has weird, nasty side effects and it's a horrible idea.
we'll do a rat study first. We'll see how those rats fight each other.
Right. Do a weightlifting rat study first.
Yes, the weightlifting rat study.
uh, the deer velvet thing made me laugh too, because oh god, this is maybe 8 years ago at ISSN. There was a company, and I would actually tell you everyone the name of it, but I can't even remember who they were, to be honest. I think they went out of business. But their big claim to fame was, I'm standing at their booth and I see these deer velvet, and this was for, I think, testosterone and GH boosting at the time.
Yep.
And so I'm asking, I'm talking to the guy, and I'm like, I'll go up and listen to this guy's spiel. Who knows, right? So sometimes the wackiest shit I've ever seen is like, oh, some of that actually works. Like there's
Yeah, that
actually
lined up.
some
Yeah,
literature on it, And so I said, hey, tell me about what this is. And he goes into this 20-minute story about how they raise the deer and where they have them and how they farm the antlers from them and all this stuff, and how it's amazing for growth hormone and everything else. And the guy who was standing next to me was just kind of listening. So we walk away from the booth, and the researcher guy goes, yeah, we tested his stuff like 10 times the dose in our lab. Didn't do dick, did like nothing. And I was like, really? I'm like, he's like, yeah. I'm like, well, that's not really that surprising. The even crazier thing was, I'm flipping through the bodybuilding magazines a couple months later. I see an ad for said deer antler velvet company with said researcher below it saying, was tested in the lab by this guy who told me in private that it didn't do anything. Now, the ad didn't say that he tested it and found a positive result. It just said it was tested in his lab.
Yeah, we tested it. And it had deer antler.
And I'm like, oh, wow, that's crazy on so many levels.
I mean, you paid for the study, so you got to use some sort of.
Right. And I think what happened was probably that. The guy comes back and goes, hey, this didn't do anything. And, maybe he illegally poached his photo. Who knows what the hell happened? I never heard what happened. But yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Last question as we wrap up. What are your thoughts about lactate as a supplement? Not lactic acid, right? Because we know lactate gets distributed into lactate plus hydrogen ions.
Right.
But could you give lactate as an oral supplement to enhance performance?
I actually just saw something had come out. Someone was talking about it just recently, and I hadn't clicked on it because I hadn't really thought about it that in depth. So, I hate to really drop you flat, but I can't really speak to it that much.
Okay, that's all right.
At the moment, but yeah, again, it's something that has come across my desk. Someone has, touted it in some way, shape, or form. I just haven't gotten into it recently,
No,
actually.
that's
But
fine. I did a
yes,
whole
people are still starting to make that a thing. So you're not completely off base by asking that.
Oh, good. Because this has been my thing for like 5 years now. So probably longer than that. Like for a while, I was like, people I just knew in private. I'm like, hey, man, what do you think of this? And, I kind of thought maybe there's something become of it. They'll do a product together, whatever. And they're all like, nah. Like only 3 people didn't tell me I was bad shit crazy. And I'm like,
Right.
huh. Everyone else is like, nah, it's crazy. I'm like, but you don't have the hydrogen ions. Like the lactate, we know, George Brooks's work, all this stuff, like gets burned as a high energy fuel. It
Yep.
appears to get across the gut. Now, could you get a high enough dose to not have GI issues, or does it actually pan out? I don't know. Like the handful of studies on it are pretty split and not super promising, but they did weird stuff like longer aerobic stuff and some of the stuff that just doesn't seem to match with the mechanism. Anyway, I'm always
Yeah.
curious because I'm starting to see a couple of products now with it in there, but the
Yes.
dose they have is so tiny. It's like I kudos for maybe putting it in there, but I
You made it a search term
right,
ingredient. You didn't make it an active ingredient.
right, and I think the patent from Cytosport is up on it too. So I
Oh,
I think as far as I could tell, again, I'm not a patent attorney or very good at these searches. They had a patent on it for quite a while, and it was in some of the early products, like not in a high amount. And I think the patent on it has expired. So as a raw material, it's pretty inexpensive. Like calcium lactate, you can get the lactate as a pretty high portion, and it's not really that expensive. So at this point, I'm giving it out free to everyone just because I want to know, does it work or not?
yeah. Just someone do it. I don't even care.
Yeah, someone run the experiment. Like if
Yeah.
it works, great. I want to use it. If it
Yeah.
doesn't,
I'll tout it. I'll put it all over.
right, right. Well, thank you so much for all your time. I really appreciate it. And if you want to be found, you want to give out any information if people are running supplement companies or looking for formulas, or I don't know if you do any side work now, or go
Yeah.
forth with however you
I
want.
do. I'm terrible with the website. It's under construction as it always seems to be. But yeah, if someone wants to hit me up, my email is just as easy as Vince at KRC, as in Kreipke Research and Consulting, KRC at google.com. So vince.krc at google.com. But outside of that, I think I'm on Instagram. I haven't checked that either. I've been extremely busy with some of my other endeavors, but yeah, no, I'm more, I love talking to this stuff. Obviously we could talk for hours on end about each individual ingredient,
Oh yeah.
but yeah, no, I love it. So I greatly appreciate this time. Dr. Mike, this was so much fun. And it definitely broke up my Friday. So thank you so much.
No, thank you, Dr. Vince. I appreciate it. And I always like one, in a selfish manner, like running all my hairball ideas across people who actually work full time in the industry doing it, which is nice to get feedback. And then two, like, for consumers, what are things to look for? What are kind of the trends? Because I think the more educated they are, it's just going to help everyone. And my hope is that it'll just weed out all the really crappy companies and they'll go away and start giving everyone else like a black eye from the association of it.
Yes.
Um, because my pet peeve of teaching nutrition students is, and it never fails, like it always comes up, supplements are unregulated, they're horrible, they're evil. And they unfortunately don't have to look too far to the past near future to find examples,
Right.
so like I get why they come up with those reasons, and hopefully we can kind of change that and it goes forward in a better fashion.
I agree. Just remember, Bluebell ice cream killed a good amount of people at one point.
Oh really? Oh
Yeah, it was. I think it was like a food poisoning listeria thing, but people always do point to supplements and how evil they are and how they're not regulated and all this stuff. And I'm like, well, okay, at first that's not true, but also food examples. Here's a couple right now. I do like bluebell ice cream. I do eat it
I
still.
ate it like last week.
Yeah. So, but yeah, so unfortunately, bad things happen in even in regulated areas, and you know, people get hurt in some way, shape, or form. So
Yeah.
yeah, don't just point to one one example and call it the rule. It's probably the exception at this point.
Yeah. When that gets into a whole side discussion, maybe we can have it another time over beer, is what things are legal, what things are not legal, and over what rationale, right? I mean,
Okay.
Tylenol kills how many thousands of people a year due to liver failure, and that's an approved over the counter drug. I'm not saying we should make it illegal, but it's just fascinating how it's not always based on data. It's based on, perception of what was actually going on. And if your supplement, let's say, has a jaded history, it just sort of adds to that story that people already have in their heads. So it's, yeah.
Yep. No, I totally agree. It's just changing the narrative a little bit.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Yep. Thanks again. I hope someone learns something. I know I always do when I talk to you. So yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Cool. Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for listening to the podcast today. Really appreciate it. Huge thanks to Dr. Vince for coming on and being so open with all of his information. I really enjoyed our conversation. I got to go super geeky and ask him all my questions and compare notes, which was awesome. So big thanks to him. If you're looking for any detailed sports supplement work, as we mentioned at the end, he is available for consults, so make sure to check him out. I still do some stuff in that realm, but it's usually only on a referral basis, so check him out. Flex Diet Cert is going to be open once again, January 2022. Best place to get all the information is to get on the wait list. So go to flexdiet.com, flexdit.com. You'll be the first to be notified, and I typically have a fast action bonus only for people through the newsletter. So check that out. Super excited to open it up again. This will allow you to get a head start on your or your client's body composition and performance goals for 2022. The way I have it set up is you can literally complete the first intervention, which will take you probably about 3 to 5 hours, maybe, if you include all the expert interviews. The first intervention is protein. So I have a chat with Dr. Stu Phillips and Dr. Jose Antonio. I give you a rundown of the big picture of metabolic flexibility and flexible dieting. I have about a 1 hour primer on all things that you need to know about protein, muscle protein synthesis, amino acids, but we explain it all in terms you can understand. And then I have 5 detailed action items for you and tell you how to use them as a system. You can literally start with the first intervention after about 4 to maybe 5 hours of work, depending on how comfortable you are with the material. So set up in a way that you can work with clients or yourself as you go through it. There's no need to complete all about 23 hours of content before you start. Again, some people may want to do that, and that's totally up to them. So go to flexdiet.com for all the info. Thank you so much again for listening to the podcast. It would really help us out by hitting the subscribe button on whatever podcast player you're using. Leave us a review, however many stars you feel is appropriate, and any and all feedback. Again, greatly appreciated. Thank you so much. Talk to you next week.